Just when you think Riot may have their hands full with the development of an action RPG, MMORPG, as well as maintaining their flagship titles, they come out with what is a completely new R&D project set in what looks like the MMOFPS genre. For those of you who don't know, an MMOFPS is a massively multiplayer online first-person shooter. This is usually the likes of Destiny 2 or Warframe, as those are the two most popular within the genre. We do also see games like PlanetSide 2 that have ever-living, persistent FPS worlds, but we won't get too deep into that one. Project T is a new project from Riot Games that seems to feature FPS, MMO, competitive multiplayer, and action RPG elements. While very little is known about this project currently, I wanted to take you all through the speculative timeline for the game, as well as go over everything that we currently know about the title, what it is, as well as what it isn't, and finally talk about the team and those that we know are confirmed to be working on this project. Back in December of 2021, the game director for Riot's tactical FPS juggernaut, Valorant, Joe Ziegler, announced that he would be leaving the online shooter to work on an unnamed project at the studio. In the press release for this, he said, "After 8 years of working on Valorant, building it from the ground up with a team of dedicated and passionate developers who've worked tirelessly to serve you all with the respect and admiration that you deserve, I'm giving up the mantle of game director of the Valorant tac shooter to my good friend Andy Ho." Ziegler was coy about what he was going to be up to in the coming months at Riot Games, though based on his comments, it seems to be something other than the MMO we currently know about. As for me, I'll be starting something new, wink, secrets, in the hopes that we can even scratch the surface of the amazing impact Valorant has already had so far. Unfortunately, after 12 years with Riot, he would leave to join Destiny 2 just this last year, but that's a whole nother story. Now, I know it's pretty early on in the video to get deep in speculation, but for me, it seems like they're trying to expand the Valorant IP into something even greater than ever before. Now, on the surface, this may not sound or even look like much, but when we start to tie it in together with some job postings that came about a half a year later, as well as a much more recent job posting, we can start to fill in the gaps and develop the full picture of what Riot Games is actually working on. A few months later, we would start to see Riot begin making job postings for a new open world AAA FPS game with AI and PvP. Now, if we start to consider what Ziegler said about his transfer and the high level of secrecy behind Riot's R&D department, and not to mention his vast experience with FPS gameplay, I think it's safe to bet that he was working on the new open world FPS for Riot Games. Most of the job listings from around this time are gone and filled, but I was able to use the Wayback Machine to pull up a snapshot from one of the job listing that was still open back in August of 2022. This specific position being for a principal game designer, combat on an unpublished R&D project. Now, there are a few responsibilities and qualifications that really started to stand out to me. The first being that they were asking for 3+ years of experience in either combat mechanics or combat feel, with an emphasis on FPS specialization. This confirming to me at least that this project was in fact an FPS. The other being that they stated the position will help decipher one of Riot's next big bets. This is terminology used by devs on Twitter who are, as of the last 24 hours, now confirmed to be working on Project T, the Riot Games MMOFPS. Right now, I'm sure you're asking yourself, Spun, how do we know they are working on Project T? What even is Project T? And has Riot Games even officially called it Project T? Well, with the help of my Discord, we were able to track down a new job posting that was put up in the last few days, of which Steven Lumpkin, design manager at Riot R&D and master of great hair, confirmed was in fact his team, stating they were looking for a progression, in-game economy, meta systems designer with FPS experience. This tweet was of course a retweet from Tracy Kennedy, producer of a Riot Games R&D game. This also confirming that Tracy Kennedy is in fact working on the MMOFPS as well. So if you made it this far in the video, this is where we begin to get the most solid evidence of this new project, as well as confirmation that it is in fact called Project T. So let's dig into this job posting because trust me, it actually gets really juicy. First off, the position is for a Game Designer 3, Progression and Meta Systems on unpublished R&D project. Nothing new here except that it seems they are working on progression, which would imply that they already have the core systems for the game in place. As we scroll down, we see that the position will be an advocate for the state of the in-game economy that the player will experience across their time playing the game. Now, as we get to the responsibilities, which starts to paint an even larger picture of what the game will look like, we see that they will work with long-form progression, which will include the combat, world, and character building, proving that the game will be more of a open world experience and less of an on-rails experience. Next, we see that they will drive a vision for what character and personal quarters progression will look like over a session, a month, a season, and across multiple seasons, which confirms a long-term progression-based game that will continue over weeks, months, and even in-game seasons. We might even see progression that goes from one season to the next. As we continue along, we see that the player economy will develop over the course of seasonal play, making me think that the game will feature seasons similar to that of Path of Exile or the way that Destiny 2 handles their content cadence. We can also see that the in-game economy will be an integral part of the game and its seasonal development. As we scroll down to the required qualifications, we can see that they are looking for someone who has shipped a lifestyle online game with long-form progression, experience with an in-game economy, robust systems, and here's where it gets really fun, a deep familiarity with long-form progression systems from multiple angles: MMO, FPS, premium mobile, competitive multiplayer, and action RPG. Yeah, that is quite a mouthful of gaming buzzwords, but let's break it down a little bit. We have MMO, which means massively multiplayer online. Then we have FPS, obviously, first-person shooter. Premium mobile, I'm not even sure on that one. That could go many directions. I'm not going to touch it. I'll let you guys discuss it in the comments below. We then have competitive multiplayer, which means that the game will have competitive elements, as well as action RPG. So is it an FPS or an action RPG? I would say that it will be less of a hybrid and more of an MMO FPS that utilizes ARPG elements, especially because this is a job posting and not just a game description. They are looking for someone with vast experience and different types of experience within the gaming industry. Now, with Riot having so many projects currently under development and most just simply being titled as R&D, it can be confusing to differentiate which is which. Right now, given the job descriptions, I would bet my life on the fact that the MMORPG and the MMOFPS are in fact completely separate titles. Now, as always, these things can change and maybe they'll scrap the two projects. Maybe they'll combine them together at some point. But for me personally, given that the two teams are hardly intermingling on Twitter, the scope of the job postings are very, very different. And furthermore, the MMORPG has a completely different section on the Riot Games job board. So I think for now, it's okay to just calm down. Let's not panic. If you're worried about the MMORPG being an FPS, I think it's incredibly unlikely. And that about sums up everything we currently know about this title, which is, at the end of the day, basically nothing. Personally, I look forward to continue covering this game, hopefully playing it someday, the Riot MMO, as well as other MMO titles in the gaming world. So if you're into that kind of thing and you're not already subscribed, which is about 70% of you, make sure you spam that subscribe button, or don't spam it, just hit it once. But with that said, let me turn it over to you. I'm curious what you guys think. If we have an MMORPG and an MMOFPS, which one will you choose to play? Will you play both? Let me know down in the comments below. And if you want to continue on this speculation train, make sure you come over and join the fastest growing Discord server this side of Piltover. As always, my name is Spun, and I look forward to seeing you all in the next video. Peace.